Right, I'll show you how to create a Playblast, and also depending on the PC you're working on, I'll show you how to use Media Encoder to compile your Playblast into a movie. Now, I've done this little bit of camera animation that I showed you in the previous tutorial. I'm now going to do a Playblast animation. That's a quick preview movie of my animation. To do this, it basically screen captures. So you need to set up this view here to be correct. At the moment, I've got this resolution gate up and so on, and it will actually render those as well. So I want to turn those off to start off with. And what I do is I do this. I go show none, and then I just go show polygons, because that's all I want to render is the polygon. So I won't get any sort of nerve circles appearing or any skeletons, rigs, stuff like that, that if you did a proper full render would not render anyway. In a Playblast, like I said, it's a screen capture, so it will pick up on everything. Then I right click on my timeline here. I make sure I've got the time slider set to all my animation, because this is what it will render. It will go along the time slider like this, looking at everything. So I'm going to render from frame 1 to frame 300, like so. I right click on this and I go to Playblast Options, okay, the little square box. And in here, this is what's in here is dependent on your PC. Now, normally what you can do with a Playblast is if you go to Format, you'll sometimes have QT in here, which stands for QuickTime. Now, some of the university computers have it, some don't. My home computer, which I'm doing this on, does not have QuickTime on here. Although I've got the Adobe Creative Suite installed, for some reason QuickTime has not shown up in here, which is good because I want to show you a different way of doing it anyway. Now, if you have got QuickTime, you can change this format to QT and then encoding to H.264, which will show up in here. Okay, and H.264 is a Apple encoding compression, and it means that when you do your Playblast, it will produce a movie that is good quality and a small file size. So it'll only be like 10 seconds worth of animation will only be about 7 meg in size, depending on the resolution. If you do this uncompressed like this, if you keep encoding set to none, you'll end up with a very large file size, and you'll fill up your N drive or your pen drive or whatever you're using very quickly. So don't ever encode with none for the time being. What I'm going to do, because I've got no QuickTime on here, I have got some other codecs installed. Now, the default ones that come with Maya are rubbish. I have installed something called the K-Lite codec pack. So under AVI, I've got Xvid here, which is actually quite good. I could use that, and that will instantly export a movie direct from Maya. And it's a nice quick way of doing preview renders and stuff like that that you can put on your blog. I'm going to go for image because this is a good way. If you haven't got any of those codecs here, this is a good way of doing it. And I'm going to go to JPEG. And what this will do, this will dump out a series of still images of my animation that I can compile together into a movie. So I'm going to change this to image and JPEG, turn all of these off so I don't get any of these things appearing like camera one. I don't want that appearing in my render. And I want the display size to be from my render settings. Okay, so you need to check that your render settings are set up correctly. I showed you in the previous movie that you can go up here to this little icon here, and all you want to do is make sure the size is what you want it to be. Okay, so I'm doing this custom sort of Panavision size, 1280 by 534. Okay, so I'm going to do it from render settings. The scale I want to 1 because I want it to do exactly the same size as my render settings. If I put it at 0.5, it's going to halve that. Okay, and I want to save to file. Okay, and it should save it in the images folder, or I think, yeah, it will be the images folder of your local project, Maya project you're working in. Sometimes it saves it into the movies folder. I think as I'm doing an image sequence, I think it will do it into the image folder. I then go Playblast. This is it doing the Playblast. Doesn't take very long. So we just let this do this, and then what we'll do, we'll then compile it into a movie using Adobe Media Encoder. It's just a nice quick way of doing it. You can do it in Premiere, you can do it in After Effects, but I think Media Encoder is a little bit simpler just for this kind of stuff. So that's completed. So let's go and have a look, just check where that's dumped those out. So I think it's done it on my, let's have a look, Google Drive. I'm in Maya 2015. If I go to my images folder, there they all are. Here are all these still images from 01 up to, crikey, 300 it should be. Okay. So I'm going to load up Media Encoder now. So find my Adobe stuff, all programs, Adobe. There we go, Media Encoder. I'll just boot this up. And all we have to do, once this is loaded up, we just have to point it into the right directory. So that we're looking in the C drive here. I need to go to my Google Drive folder, which is what I'm using for this. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I think it's going to be in users, Matt, Google Drive. There we go. And I was in Maya 2015 and my images folder, and they all load up. Now what I need to do in here is I want to load this as an image sequence. So if I go to the options here, enable import as image sequence, that means I can just click and drag one image and it will load up all the other images with the same file name and the sequence numbers after their file name. Right, I will drag the first file over here, and it's loaded up my entire image sequence. Now you can see already the format is this H.264, this QuickTime H.264. It's going to dump out a .mp4 file, H.264, which is a really good compression. You can change these options. If you click on any of these, you can change them. So if I click in here, I can look at this and I can change options here. So look, I've got no audio, so I might as well turn that off. It might make the file size a bit smaller. And you might want to change your frame rate. I tend to work at 24 frames a second, so I'm going to change that down to 24 frames a second, like so. Everything else I think will be fine. Okay, you can change some of the options, but for preview kind of movies and stuff like that, I'd leave it pretty much the same. So okay, that I can change its name. I can look where it's going to output it in here. I might just give it a simpler name. So let's just call it test movie. There we go. Save that. And then when we're ready for that to go, we just press the little green play arrow. And look, it's encoding this now. And that's done it. We can shut down Media Encoder. We'll go and check the movie's all right before we shut anything down. So where was I again? Google Drive. And in my images folder, it should be in there with all my files. So hopefully I can delete those. Where's my movie? Right down the bottom somewhere. There it is, test movie. So let's have a look. It is 5.49 meg in size, which is great, tiny. If I double click on it, let's just see it all works good. It's great. That's good, and you can upload that to your blog or whatever. But like with everything, if you're working on the end drive, you haven't got a lot of space, so delete the stuff. Check it's all okay first, but this was a quick render, so if I had to redo it, it's no big deal. But I'm going to delete all of those. I hold Shift Delete, that means it doesn't bung it into the waste paper bin, it just gets rid of it totally. And that's how you do a Playblast and how you can encode it into a movie using Adobe Media Encoder.